Hi guys, in this video I'm gonna go over how I analyze a standard. So I'm gonna go through the chords and I'm gonna talk about what scales I use to play over the different chords in the key. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take the song All of Me, because it's a fairly simple tune. It's in the key of C, and it's easy, but it still has a lot of chords, so there's something to talk about. And then I'm gonna assign degrees to the chords and talk about how I think about the chords, what scales I use. And I'm also gonna try to talk about how I group some chords together in functions. I think a lot in functions, because I find that if you think and group chords together in functions, then you're grouping them together because they sound similar and they work the same way in a progression. And that's very useful, that you have a way of thinking about the chords that is sort of reflecting how you hear them in the progression and how they work in the context of the song. So here's the song. The first thing we should look at is probably the key. So I said it was in C major, and you can kind of tell from the fact that the last melody note is a C, and also because the last chord before the turnaround here is a C. So that's how you know that. I'm gonna assume that you know the basic chords of C major, so the diatonic chords, so that would be the ones I've written down here. Because otherwise then analyzing this is not going to make too much sense. So the first thing I'm going to do is just going to map in the basic chords. So all the chords that are just found in C major I'm going to write in the Roman numeral form. So that would be a 1 chord. This is not there. There is no A7 either, but there is a D minor. So that's a 2. No E7. We have a 6 degree A minor. There's no D7, but we have a 2-5. So that's the first half of the song, and of course we get pretty much the same in the second half. That's a 1 chord, 2, here we get a 4. Here we have 2 chords in the bar, and actually it's just the same kind of chord, because if you think in terms of functions, then C major and E minor are both going to be tonic chords. So in that way you don't have to think 2 chords, you only have to think 1. But I'm just going to put in the Roman numerals anyway. So A7 is not there, 2 and 5 and then a 1. I'm not really gonna go over the turnaround. I actually have a lesson on turnarounds that covers exactly this progression, but I think in the key of B flat, I'm not sure. So these are the basic functions. So now we need to look at the chords that are not really in C major. And what I mean by that is that we'll have to change some notes in the scale to get this to be a diatonic chord. It doesn't really mean that the song modulates, because if a song modulates you really hear another key center, and you don't really, you just have a few auxiliary dominants, and here's also some 4 minor in this song, but it stays in C. Even if you have to use different scales to improvise on it, it never really modulates. So let's just start with, so we have a D minor here, and before that we have an A7. Let's see, so if I take a C major scale written from A to A, then I have that here, and to fit in an A7 I'll need a C sharp, and as we also can see in the melody here, it also contains a B flat. So now I have A, B flat, C sharp, D, E, F, G and A, and not surprisingly this is an A7 leading to D minor. So in fact this is the 5th mode of D harmonic minor. And if we do the same for the E, then all we need to change, it's also in the melody, is the G sharp, and then we get something that you can figure out for yourself is A harmonic minor. So now we cover that. So the way I write down chords like this is by doing this. But of course that's just a question of notation, so however you want to write it, doesn't really make too much sense. So now we have the E7 covered, we have this one covered as well. This one, and this one. And that means that we only need to look at the D7. And I think one sort of important point with the D7 is of course that since this is a 32 bar standard and it's split in 2 times 16, then you will find that in most cases when you have this kind of form, you actually have a fourth line, so the end of the first half, that looks like this. So it's 2 bars of the dominant of the dominant. So in this case the dominant is G7 and the dominant of the dominant is D7. And then you get the 2-5 to go back to the second half. And actually you will have this ending even if the song doesn't start on the 1. In this case it actually resolves, but that's not always the case. So this is very common, and it's important to recognize that this is a normal ending. All these places where you find a progression and you understand that even if this has a 2 or something, it's basically the same thing, and that means that if you have to learn another song that has that and you can recognize that, it's much easier to remember and to understand and to play over. And even if you're sight reading it, you can much better hear it. So that's why you think in terms of functions and how you sort of try to sum it up and understand it in a different way than just the chords and the degrees, simply just to understand how the progression works and how it's similar to other progressions in other keys. That's very important, just for efficiency. So that's a D7. D7 obviously is just, even though it has a passing note here, but you can see that it's really a passing note going from B to B flat to A. It's just G major that you would use on this. There are a few other things that often happens on the dominant of the dominant, but maybe that's for another time. So now we have that. Now we only have this chord down here, and that's an F minor. So logically that's a 4 minor, and in fact it has a D in the melody, and so that means it's actually an F minor 6 chord. And what you play on an F minor 6 chord would be this. So if I write down from F to F our C major scale, then well, we need a minor, so that's this one. And here you have the C harmonic major scale. You could use that one, but most people prefer actually to have this scale, mostly because we don't really like sort of this big skip from A flat to B. That's not that melodic, so we use this scale, and that's actually F melodic minor. And F melodic minor is what you'll use on most 4 minor chords. And this is of course strictly just a 4 minor chord. It's a 4 chord and it's minor, but there are quite a few chords that are 4 minor. One of the other more common ones is B flat 7, which of course an F minor 6 with a B flat in the bass is in fact a B flat 7 with a 9. So they're very, very similar. I think you can also see, so if I have to look at this progression in sort of wider terms or in sort of a more broad way, then we start on the 1, and then with 2 dominants we move to the 2nd degree. Then we get this cadence, or just a dominant, to the 6th degree, 5/5, 2/5. And then we repeat this, so we go from 1 and then via 2 dominants to the 2nd degree, 4, 4 minor, 1, auxiliary dominant, 2/5/1. And I think it's important that you can of course fill this in many ways. If you recognize that something is like that this is just a 5 going to the 6th degree, then that means that it is okay if you want to play a 2 in front of it for some time. So this idea that you think in terms of, well, it's supposed to be this function, and the point of this chord is to move to A minor, and therefore we can maybe add more chords, or you can take chords away, and it makes it easier just to interpret, and it also makes it easier if you have to read another version with slightly different chords, that you still just think in sort of the basic understanding of the song, and it makes it less static, and you're more flexible when you have to play on it. And you can of course just also mold the song's progression while you're playing, which is a normal thing in jazz to do also. So that's sort of the basic thing that I want to bring across here. Of course I can't really go into too much detail. I think this video is already way too long. That was how I view the chords of All of Me and how I think about the harmony. Of course this is meant as an opening for a discussion, and what I want to demonstrate is mostly not so much how I just analyze this specific standard, but also how I think in functions and how I try to sum stuff up and how that's useful. So if you have ideas for this, and if you have something that I need to explain more, or an opinion on this, if you don't agree, then leave a comment. I think the comments of this video are a good place for a discussion on this. I'm probably going to do a few more videos like this because I want to demonstrate this in a few examples. I don't think I can do this in one example, so if you have ideas for songs I should try and analyze, then they're of course welcome. I'm probably going to stick with standards because this makes most sense when we're talking about songs that actually are in a key and that are written as functional pieces, like All of Me or like most standards are in general. But that's about it for this time. New lesson on Thursday. See you then. Bye.